So when we have group data, that's when we're given our frequency distributions. We have a formula. It'll be on your formula sheet. Breaking it apart kind of from the inside out, we have the data value, or the midpoint. Subtract from the mean. This is just an estimate for our standard deviation. You have to square it and then multiply each one by its class's frequency. Remember, our sigma means our summation. So we're summing up each class's data minus mean squared times the frequency. And then dividing by n minus 1. So n is always our sample size, or the sum of total frequencies. Okay. First we have to estimate the sample mean. Remember, that's also in our formula sheet. We did that last learning target where we sum up the data value times its frequency and divide by sample size. And then that standard deviation formula is what we were talking about. To find the midpoint of each class, you average the upper and lower limit. So upper limit plus lower limit divided by 2. In some cases, like this example, we're trying to find the standard deviation of number of children per household in a region. The midpoint is already given to us, so we don't need to do that. To find the sample mean, x bar is equal to the sum of the midpoint times its frequency divided by the total number. So our frequency, if you add up our second column, is 50. For each row, we're going to do the midpoint times its frequency. So pause the video, go ahead and do that. Now we're going to add up that entire column. So summing that up, that's 91. So our sample mean estimate is 91 divided by our sample size, which is about 1.8. It's still children. Although we can't have 1.8 of a child, we're going to keep it as 1.8. Okay, now for our standard deviation, we have the sum of x minus, we're going to use 1.8 instead of our x bars. So the midpoint minus the sample mean we found. Square it, multiply it by its frequency, and divide by 50 minus 1. For that, we'll take the square root. So in this fourth column, for each one, we're going to take the midpoint minus 1.8 and then square it. And after we have that, we'll multiply it by the frequency of that class. So take a minute, pause the video, and do each of the rest of the columns. Check that you have the midpoint minus our mean, and then square it. Check each one of those squares, and we're going to take each one of those and multiply it by its frequency, so 0.64 times the frequency of 19, and so on. We're going to take each one of these products and sum them up and get a total of 145.4, and that is the numerator of this fraction. We're taking the square root of 145, square root of 145.4 divided by 50 minus 1 is 49. Put up that calculator. It's 1.72. So that is our standard deviation for our group data. Okay. Our last concept for this learning target is coefficient of variation. Our coefficient of variation is usually abbreviated to CB, and it describes the standard deviation as a percent of the mean. Our formula for both of them are the same, whether it's population or sample, except it just needs the different symbols. So we say CV, and in subscripts we tell it what we're taking the coefficient of variation of. The symbol for mean of a population, standard deviation of a population is the lowercase sigma divided by your mean, that's mu, and then multiply it by 100 to get it as a percentage. Same thing for samples, so coefficient of variation of a sample, except our standard deviation symbol is the lowercase s divided by x bar for your mean, divided by 100, or multiplied by 100, so that's standard deviation divided by mean. We use these to compare two different data groups to see which one varies more. Okay, so we have the heights and weights of a basketball team. We're trying to find which one is more variant. So we're going to use our calculator to find our mean height and then our standard deviation. So in your yellow calculator, you need to go to Stat, Edit. There's numbers already in your list. Arrow up to where L1 is highlighted, hit clear, and then enter. And then you need to type each one of the heights into L1. Okay, so enter the number and then hit enter. Then hit Stat again, arrow over to the middle menu, the Calc menu, and then hit enter. We want the first one, then enter one more time. X bar, the very top number, is our mean. And our standard deviation, since it is a population, we need that one. We need the sigma x. That's the 3.200, and let's round it to 8. So we had 3.2008 divided by 72.42, and then multiplied by 100 to get it as a percentage. So our height has a coefficient of variation of about 4.4%. Okay, and we're going to do the same thing for the weight. So Stat, Edit, clear what's in there, and enter the weights. Be careful how you enter them in. And then Stat, arrow right, and then enter. Our mean is 187.83, and our sigma x, that tells us our standard deviation, is 17.6863. So standard deviation divided by mean, multiplied by 100. Is 9.4%. And that tells us that our weight varies more. Since it has a higher percentage.